Welcome to East Tennessee Pinball. Today I am working on this Swords of Fury. I've got several things fixed already. Got rid of the batteries, put in a coin cell there. Got the GI lights working on the back box. Basically, this relay, it controls the basically it can cycle these independently of the rest of the GI lights. This wasn't working. It was a combination of the header pins here and the header pins on, it's hard to see down there, on this interconnect board. Basically those there on the right, the yellow ones there, and there's two sets of plugs, yellow and white. The AC signals coming in there, those weren't making good contact. But right now, the last thing are, so each one of these drop targets are independently controlled, so you can shoot down and each one can pop up independently. Those two and three, they don't pop up very well. And it's not that they're sluggish. I've already checked that. They just don't pop up with any vigor. I'm not absolutely sure what it is. So they're opto controlled. I've already gone through. I've reflowed the solder on the opto. There's an opto board behind this whole mechanism. Oftentimes that will fix the problems like that. That doesn't appear to be the problem. What's unique about these two versus the other three, those two, and only those two of the three, go through this relay here. So this relay on this board here is basically meant to essentially double the number of transistors, so this thing can control more solenoids. So essentially this is the way Williams, they made these systems. They had so many solenoids on there. They wanted to control more things. This game's got all kinds of stuff on it. So basically you've got I think they call this the AC. So not AC voltage, but one side's A, one side's C. And basically, so this thing can switch and you get all the transistors going one way, go to C, and they can essentially work in a whole another sense for another solenoid. So this basically is a make or break switch. And I believe, I'm not positive, when this is switching to the C side, when it's engaged, I'm thinking it's not making good contact. At least that's what I'm hoping. So I'm gonna pull this board out and I'm gonna swap this out. We'll yank it out, put it on the bench, and I've got my new one right here. And we'll see see if this fixes the problem. It may or may not. Okay, so I got this driver board on the bench. I had this board out once before. The first thing I did, kind of chasing down this problem, was I reflowed the header pins on here, thinking maybe, an input or output was poor. I also reflowed the solder on that relay. That didn't change anything. And the other thing, I just looking here at this relay, and that wasn't me. Somebody put a screwdriver in there trying to pry the cap off this thing. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. These things are, they're kind of a sealed cap. Somebody's trying to pop it off and maybe clean the contacts in there. So the way these things work, like right now, that third pin right there goes through the wire, is connected to the top, and is connected to the top. So the third one is connected to the top one. When this coil energizes, it pulls that plate down, and that switch moves down to the bottom one, and then the second and third pins are connected. So basically, let's say, I don't know how many transistors this game's got, and let's say it's got 16 or 24, whatever. You can have 24 running through this way, and then you can have it basically use those same 24 wired up to the other side. So you could, if you had 24, you could have 48 different things operated by 24 transistors. So it's a way of doubling your money with your transistors just using a relay. So that's why they use it. So the next thing to do is just desolder this sucker and put in the new one, and throw it in the game and see if it alleviates our problem. So we'll see. So I got the new relay soldered in there, and this one has a slightly smaller footprint, so you can kind of see around the perimeter. That's where that lines up with that big gouge right there. So somebody had a screwdriver trying to pry that lid off digging in right there and digging in right there. So somebody was definitely trying to pull this off. It's quite possible I'm following somebody else's footsteps trying to solve this problem, and somebody just kind of ham-handedly trying to yank that sucker off. I don't know why they just didn't desolder it, but anyway, maybe they're just trying to get the cap off. But sometimes these caps have little notches where you could potentially, but this one, I believe it's glued on or pressed on anyway. It doesn't have the little press tabs on the sides where you can snap them off. Anyway, it's time to put the sucker in and see if it works. Okay, I'm on the solenoid test mode, and I'm testing this solenoid right here. I'll show you what it's doing. It's actually better, but it's not all the way good. Now it's going to work every single time. Well, it doesn't want to malfunction on the camera, but just a second ago it was working about 90% of the time. Now it's working 100%, and I can just tell by the sound it's hitting harder. Strange. Let me move on to the next one. The third one there is also an offending one. Yeah, you see there? It did a couple of failed tries. And it's not a spring that pulls this up. It's a coil pulling with a solenoid. So that solenoid is just not hitting hard. See, you got a couple there bad ones. It's just not hitting, that solenoid's not hitting hard. It's not getting enough power. So I'm gonna have to go dig a little further. This actually is a lot better than it was before. I should have filmed it before, where it was only coming up like half or 2/3 of the time, and now it's most of the time. So that was part of the problem. You know, not a great connection in that relay, but there's something else going on in the circuit that's unique to 2 and 3, which they get their power going through that AC relay. So I'm gonna have to go back to schematic to see what else is unique to 2 and 3 and figure out what it could be as simple as a pin somewhere. So I'm gonna have to check it out. I'll update you here in a little bit. All right, so I got the schematics pulled up here. So let's go through this. So there's 3 of those drop targets on this page. You've got the M, it's kind of cut off here, right there next to my mouse. It's just a regular controlled solenoid. The computer grounds the transistor, provides power to that, and pops that sucker back up. Just a normal controlled solenoid. So that's the M, that's the number 1. You've also got the I and the C, the 4th and the 5th drop target. It's on the special solenoid circuit. The reason it's special is because normally these special solenoids are wired up to things like down here, these other special solenoids like kickers and pop bumpers. So they can be controlled by the computer through the microprocessor, or they can also be controlled by a switch on the playfield, where the switch goes directly to the transistor to ground it out. Instead of having to go through the microprocessor. The thinking was some of these old processors were so slow, by the time the microprocessor processed it and gave a signal to the transistor, it would be too late. The ball would already be moved away from the slingshot or the pop bumper, and it wouldn't effectively kick the ball very well. But in this sense, the special solenoid is basically acting as a controlled solenoid, because that's not how these are working. In fact, it's got an opto, so it's basically using this as a controlled solenoid. So both of these are working also. So what's different is on the next page you see drop target 2 and 3, and this is basically, see, this is the A side of that relay and this is the C side of the relay. So I was suspicious about this AC relay because that was the one thing that was unique about 2 and 3. Now, obviously you could say, well, the out-hole kicker was working, the ball shooter lane, and all the 3 were working, and they were, and they were kicking the ball at every time. But the thing is, these were working. They just weren't working quite well enough to get that drop target all the way up. So I was of the impression that basically the the relay was working well enough to do the work of the alcohol kicker, but it wasn't working well enough to do the work of bringing the drop target up. And I am pretty certain that replacing that relay did improve the performance of these. I mean, it gets up most of the time now, and before it would only get up maybe half the time. So it did help things. So one other test, so after I looked at this myself before I showed it to you, and so the other last thing I did is I went into the game and I got some alcohol. I've got alcohol here in a spray bottle somewhere. Well, anyway, and well, I'll just walk out there and show you. Hold on a second. So these are the 4 drop targets. So when those solenoids engage, they pull that up. So it's so basically what I did, get this bottle of alcohol here, and I just sprayed a little alcohol on 2 and 3. And when I did that, they worked and they kicked hard, and so that tells that's not a permanent fix, just spraying alcohol in there, but it tells me that they're a little bit gummy. So that tells me what the problem is. So basically, I'm gonna take this thing apart and pull all those plungers out, put in the ultrasonic, clean it, take the sleeves out, replace all the sleeves, and get that good and clean. And I believe that will solve the rest of the issues with the malperformance of these drop targets. All right, I got this thing taken apart, and I think I see part of the problem here is if you look at those coil sleeves, the 3rd, 4th, and the 5th, the sleeves are a little bit shorter. They're not a lot shorter, but they're, I don't know, 3/16 of an inch maybe, 1/8 of an inch. So what that enables is when these things are way out, they don't have much meat stuck into the coil sleeve, and they could potentially get misaligned a little bit. So those coil sleeves, they need to be as long as possible without touching when it's all the way up, so when they're down they don't get crooked. And so that could be the problem. They're actually not, they're a little dirty but not extremely dirty. But anyway, I'm going to put in the proper length coil sleeves in all of them, because actually once we fixed the relay, if you remember, number 2 was almost, at least on the film, it was working 100%. I did catch it once not working when y'all didn't see it. Number 3 was still messing up. 5 was working, but 5 doesn't have the extra resistance that have to go through that relay. So this is probably just an issue of multiple small nicks causing a fatal flaw. So anyway, I'm gonna replace all these coil sleeves with the right one. I'm gonna take all the plungers out. Done. Oops, one left. Done. These are gonna go in ultrasonic, and I think we'll have it fixed by then. We'll see. Alright, so I got the new coil sleeves in there. I got the plungers nice and clean. Just gonna reassemble everything and throw it back in there. Here, now that I got the coil sleeves out, you can really see the difference in height between those 2 lengths. And with the shorter one, the plunger, when it's out, it just doesn't sit in very far, and if it's just a little bit cockeyed, it can grab it. It's my hypothesis anyway. We'll see. Got to get everything cleaned up, got it back in here, and I don't know if you can hear the difference. It's much snappier. It's very happy. I went through like 50 of these. It's not even close to missing. I'll go to the other one here. Good. Well, this one's all done. Not shopping this job. This game, just fixing a few minor issues, and so this one's done. Talk to y'all later. Adios.